What is up, YouTube? It's Aaron back here with the channel, and today I am here with my boy Fritz again. We're going to be doing a set 2 review and then a little bit of an overall tier list, getting some of our thoughts down on the meta. How are you doing today, my friend?
Doing excellent. Just got back yesterday from casting I think it's the 7th Runes in Rift. It's either 6th or the 7th. They just keep coming. But exciting stuff. Got our first, well, it was our second set 2 tournament, but things still developing, some new stuff happening. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we see a lot of new results coming from China. Like every day, we've seen a bunch of city championships, so we've got all of that to look at. I played in the tournament for a little bit yesterday before I had to head out, so got a little bit of an idea of what we've been doing, playing a little bit of the Runes and Rifts strength ladder. So if y'all want to hop in over there, I would recommend it. It's solid competition just to get some set 2 under your belt. So yeah, let's hop right in. We're going to start with Rumble. We're going to do mainly based off signature spell. Obviously, we're going to discuss a lot of this all verbally. But yeah, so first Rumble, red-blue leader, and the leader reads, all your mechs get defending +1. So just effectively like a worse Master Yi, and a pretty good color combination, obviously. Like we've seen Kai'Sa with this color combo be one of the most dominant decks in set 1. It's both of its units are solid, not great. I would say probably like 5 out of 10 type stuff. Like solid for the mech archetype, but right now I don't think we have enough mechs for this dark to like really just like take over and like be a full mech deck. And then its signature spell, Danger Zone, solid, not great. Again, if your entire deck was mechs, I think this deck would have a little bit more synergy. But right now, like if you just wanted to play a mech deck, I think Kai'Sa as a mech shell just feels better overall. What are your thoughts on Rumble?
I mean, pretty similar thoughts here. I think the idea of a stat stick deck is fine. I mean, that's pretty much what Yi was in the last set. However, the colors for Yi benefit stat sticks a little bit more because you have all the buffs, you have the defies, the stop, and counter spells that stop your actual units from being removed. So the idea of a leader and most of the units behind it are essentially just I get better stats. I like give keywords to my guys. It seems a little bit counterintuitive with the color identity. That being said, like you said, the colors are good, so you can kind of offset it a little bit that way. I think this archetype just needs more support. Right now, I don't think it's really all there.
I think if you look at it color alone, I think it's probably somewhere in the B tier. But like if you look at like the identity of the deck, I'd probably put it somewhere in the C, just as of right now. Yeah, that's probably where I'm at with it. For Lucian, yep. This is I don't remember the exact leader ability. It's something to do with assault. It's like plus one
assault for each equipment.
For each equipment, yeah. So it's an equipment deck, which I think generally seems to be what the orange type it or like color is like leaning in towards these right now. Like we've got Lucian, we've got Fiora, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and even the deck like Sivir, I think is generally pretty equipment focused. Lucian has one of the best signature spells in the game, Relentless Pursuit. It says move a friendly unit, you may attach an equipment with the same controller to it, and then this turn, when that unit has when I conquer, you may move me to my base. So a lot of mobility. So this is a deck that will maybe feel like a bit of a purple deck just based off of Relentless Pursuit. Also, the Lucian champion restand itself the first time it conquers. So a lot of mobility in this deck. It doesn't actually have to worry about defending. I would be playing a lot of conquer battlefields off of this because you're going to be able to guarantee them every turn. Against the Draven deck, you can kind of like let them hold a little bit and like not let them gain all the ability off of their leader. But with this deck, like you're always going to conquer every battlefield every turn if that's the goal. And then red orange, we haven't seen a lot of success from this color archetype. Originally, I think it was only Volibear that had this, and that was generally like an Aurora deck. So this is like the first like red orange aggro deck that we'll kind of see. I think it has potential. I haven't built it too much myself. I think if I had to guess, card economy will be a bit of a struggle for it. If I had to guess, I'd probably place it somewhere in the B tier. Like the champions and signature spell, the signature spell is very good. The leader's okay. I think gear decks right now, like especially early in the meta, it's kind of easy to predict that is how the meta will shift. Thermo Beam's a very good card, so obviously this deck can play Thermo Beam, but it also is counterintuitive with your deck's strategy. So I think it's probably somewhere in the B tier for me. I think it's got a lot of potential. Over the course of time, I think this leader probably scales very well with Relentless Pursuit. But as of right now, I'm not convinced by all of like the gears outside of like the top 2 or 3 for this deck to be successful.
It's a cool idea in that you have mobility in colors that traditionally don't have mobility well, they have a little bit, but not a lot. And I agree with you that maybe in the future it'll find some legs, but I think right now it kind of, and this goes with a few of the set 2 leaders, so slight spoiler, is that not only do we have this new mechanic gear, but it came right along with all the gear hate with it.
Mhm.
And it people could be oversiding a little bit or over hating gear. And when your entire deck revolves around having equipment that you have to equip to your guys, and otherwise your guys don't really do too much, it feels a little bit rough into a meta where people are playing, again, cards like Thermal Beam, like you said.
Yeah.
And I do think that there could be some things that this deck does in the future. For instance, one of the standout cards for me in these colors is, I believe it's called Rune Runner, and it is a, I want to say a 5/4 or a 6/5 that
6/5.
just
Yeah.
can't be targeted. And if you throw a bunch of gear on that, obviously it gets pretty difficult to out by
Yeah.
itself. So I think this deck could see success in the future, but right now I agree with you. I'd put it somewhere in B.
Yeah. I think like the assault is nice,
Mhm.
but again, like if you either don't see enough gear in the early game, or just get wiped out by a thermal beam or like a well timed gear removal, I think it's going to be difficult for this deck to kind of maintain its tempo over the course of a long game. Because right now a lot of the gear don't provide additional cards, and I think that's something that can be an issue with this deck. And then we get to Draven. This is probably just the best leader of the set, maybe one of the best leaders in the game. We saw obviously Annie perform very well as Red Purple in set one. Three of the top four in Houston, which was our only regional. And then this leader is just absolutely broken. Every time you win a combat, you draw a card. That's not a once per turn effect. It's not a once per anything effect. There's no tap requirement for it. And then obviously a very good color combination. Its leader or its champion, its chosen champion generally is a 4-cost, no power. That says when I win a combat, play a gold gear token. So you're able to just like ramp and just like maintain your mana, which the Annie deck sometimes struggled with. So you have cards, you get to maintain mana. Like, what is there really to struggle with when you're playing this deck? Obviously, like removal can be a bit of a problem, but like you're maintaining that card economy. I think this is just like very clearly an S tier deck. What are your additional thoughts on this?
Yep, I would agree. I honestly think it's the best deck of the set. It or another deck that we'll get to, but I think it's very, very high quality. The cards are really good. And honestly, seeing how pretty much every other leader would design, it just feels like an oversight. This card didn't have a once per turn on it. Like
Yeah,
they printed hard once per turns on some of these cards. And then
yeah,
this
like
one just
yeah.
doesn't. Like
Mhm.
I
Yeah, like they either I okay, I'm not like accusing it, but like I think either the
Mhm.
combat mechanic needs to go to cleanup in order to for the draw to take place. Even if that's the case, I think it's still very good because right now you can fight or flight, you can do a lot of different things like to prevent combat from resolving technically, and like still get the draw, which I think is unacceptable. Like it's too strong. Or you can just make it a substantially more reasonable of, and it's still very good of just like tap like whenever you do that. And if you want to give it a restand effect on Conqueror, sure, God bless. But like, it's still just very good as is. Like, I this leader is 100% overtuned. Um, but yeah, like I don't know. Like this deck is very good. A lot of the early results from China see this deck just like overperforming, and I don't really see that
Yeah.
changing too much. Red and purple, like red was already one of the best colors in the game. Purple was already very good. Kind of struggle with mana and with the gold. Like the gold mechanic and what's the not merchants the one that moves when you
Treasure
generate.
Hunter,
Yeah,
the
that
best
card is
card in the game.
absolutely
Yeah.
absurd. One of the best cards in the set by far.
Yeah,
Um,
I personally think it's the best card in the game. Like that card on its own generates like ramping essentially 5+ runes if you
mhm.
can protect it a single time. Which in the Draven deck, it's so easy. Why did they give if they're gonna define combat like this, where it doesn't matter if the units are there by the end of the combat? Then why did they give this non once per turn draw to the colors that have a push like a movement? Like yeah,
Yeah,
it makes no sense to me.
it makes
But
sense with red,
anyways,
right? Because red's like the assault, like we're gonna battle it out, but purple is like
yeah.
the kind of we're gonna cheat them, not cheat mechanics, but like mechanics of the game. Like we're gonna bounce, we're gonna like move, like it's like the whole
Yeah.
like gimmick of it. So I think this color combination was a bit of an oversight. Not want to say this, just I think will be one of the best leaders in the game. Uh, we'll discuss tier zero in the future. This is obviously just like a bit of an overview, but like this leader
Yeah.
is very, very good. Um, expect it to be everywhere moving forward.
Yep. Agreed.
Rek'Sai, we've got red yellow. This is a very aggressive deck. It says on Conquer you get to look at the top two cards of your deck, and then you can play one of them. It has a solid chosen champion. It's a 3/3 red. Accelerates for 1 and a power, and then assault +1. So it's a 3/4 if you choose to do that. and then friendly units played from anywhere other than a player's hand have accelerate. So rather strong. And then you also have a solid signature spell in the form of Void Rush, which is reveal the top 2 of your main deck. You may play one of them, reducing its cost by 2, and then draw any cards you did not for 2 and a power. So I think this deck's like it's got legs. So in general, my big concern with aggro decks is that they're going to run out of card economy, and this deck I think fixes that issue. It has a few different options. I'm not sure if red yellow is like the best color combo, but you have access to cards like Cola Week. You have like if in theoretically like Vengeance and like Imperial Decree, like outing some of these like really difficult to out like tower decks that we may see in some other strategies. Like you still have those outs to it, and then on top of it, you just like have like the accelerate option on all of your cards. So I think this is probably a solid B tier deck. Maybe it could be pushing A if someone like finds a way to make it consistent. You have like a solid 2-drop for the deck that allows you to view all the cards beforehand, so you get to like kind of stack your deck appropriately. What are your thoughts on this?
So I originally was kind of on the same page as you, and I've kind of slipped it down for me right now at like top of C, bottom of B. I honestly think that the other deck that has this same color combination, Hook Darius, is probably, in my opinion, a little bit better. Like you said, it does struggle with card economy, but I think right now we are in a meta, or we say we're in a meta. It looks like we're going to go to a point where decks are not going very wide, and they have a lot of these very tall or maybe 4 units on the board at a time. And one of the things that Hook Darius does, and mind you, Hook Darius was a like B C tier deck in set 1, it goes very wide and then it punishes you for going tall with cards like against stratagem and such. And I think that when you're playing this style of aggro deck, especially in a format where Draven and Annie have these like really efficient 1-for-1s with like fight or flight and such, uh, having taller units is like worse than having a lot of units. And Rek'Sai, for me, at least the way the deck has been being built right now, and maybe it'll change, is it has been more of a taller aggro deck, where you don't build infinite tokens and you do get the play cards for free. I think that is the best card of the deck, or best part of the deck is the signature spell and the ability to see cards every time you conquer. But some of it is like a little bit fake, like rush off of accelerate off of the top of the deck. Like how often does that come up? It's like you conquered one and you didn't have the other battlefield, but you're playing a aggro deck that wants to be conquering every turn. So if you take the battlefields and then they just don't like push back with it, it just feels a little bit difficult to reestablish once you've actually lost your board with the way the leader works and such. So this is why I like the Hook Darius, because you go wider, so it's harder to clear everything. And then you do have access to like the really broken endgame cards like Stratagem, and if you chose to play it like Decree. So for me, bottom would be top of C.
I think somewhere in B tier is fine. I like those things that you're saying in Darius. I think this deck can do as well. I think it kind of depends on how you do it. Like if your first approach with the deck is swing and then first action, you can't really play those Legion cards. But you could theoretically play. I think it's Vanguard Captains. Like it's like the 3/3 that like plays 2 for Legion. Like you could play all these cards. Under Titan, I think is a very strong card. It's when it says when it's revealed, you get to add 2 mana. So that's definitely a mechanic that I think this deck can take advantage of. You can like cheat out some stuff that way. I'm not sold on this deck being fantastic, obviously. But I think it has potential. Between this and Lucian, like one of these is probably gonna end up being like a solid aggro deck. Will it be better than Draven? Probably not. But like if that leader somehow gets checked at some point, like I think like these have potential, especially over time. I think Lucian probably scales marginally better. But we'll see if there's any more support that comes from like the revealing mechanic. As of right now, it's like kind of limited in terms of how strong it can be.
Yeah.
Next is Ornn. This is a color combo green-blue that we've seen in Ari. And the leader is you gain an extra power every turn to activate a gear. So rather strong. It's like effectively a Kaisa ability, which we saw obviously perform very well. But again, it's very gear reliant. Thermal Beam, I think, is a very accessible card. Like, obviously, we've only gone through 4 leaders, but like these are leaders that I think are all rather prominent. We've always seen Kaisa. And Thermal Beam is just like kind of everywhere. I think almost every color has a gear removal right now to some extent. So like that's not something to be super concerned with. Yeah, I think the deck's like solid. I think it's probably like a B tier thing. And I think it definitely thrives in an environment where there aren't too many like yellow or gear removal. Like I don't think this deck can ever really be like an S tier deck just because of how reliant it is on the gear strategy. It is very efficient at what it does. You're not going to run out of cards too often. The Ornn chosen champion is very good. It's a 6 for 4 that like gets +1 for every gear in play, so you can make that unit whatever 40 like at some points. Obviously you can't play Triforce, but like there's all of the chosen or not the chosen the unique signatures for Ornn are strong, but I think it's just not a color combination that I think will not a color combo. But I think it's just a deck that is a little too reliant on one specific thing that is also a little slow at times. For it to really justify it being anything over B, and then like even at its ceiling, I think it probably peaks somewhere around A.
Okay, so I personally think that Ornn is a C tier leader, and the reason being is Ornn is a pretty linear deck in that it wants to play gears on the early turn and then play your Ornn champion, make a giant towers, and then start coming back because you bled points early game. I think that this doesn't work. Well, we have decks like Draven and Annie in the format where they're just avoiding combats entirely with Rebuke, which has been started seeing quite a bit of play. There's Rebuke. There is the Fight or Flight. There's even if you want to play it, I forget the exact name of it, but there's a unit that's Rebuke on a body. I think that there are too many ways for you to fall behind and then just lose to a few well-timed pieces of removal. And then on top of that, you still do have the same problem that these ramp decks do of just having aggro decks go under you. And looking at Draven literally has a champion unit that's going to score extra points. So you are put on a clock very, very quickly. And I'm not saying that Draven is going to be playing purple Draven. I've seen it like sided as like a one of, but just the existence of stuff like that makes it very scary for me to want to play a deck that wants to almost pass its first few turns. So I definitely think it's more of a C tier deck, and I think that all the gear hate again in the format is maybe pushing it down even a little bit further.
Yeah, I get it. I think the leader is very strong. I think it has a lot of strong aspects to it. Like the signature spells or like gear are all strong. The chosen champion is very good. His leader ability is good. I think the color combination is also solid. I just haven't like I didn't love Ari. Like I think this is like like a little too defensive, and obviously that is like the goal of these like green, blue, and what's the other one? Purple are all generally like the defensive archetypes. But like I think it's just like a little too slow in the early games, which is in general my concern with like the gear is like that is something that I am not a big fan of. Is like you generally want to like play units early and then develop spells later to like back up your units. But like if you were playing the gear first, then you're probably going to be 2 even 3 turns behind on the clock before you're able to catch up. So I think there's a lot of strong aspects to this deck, but it may just not be the metaphor. Like you said, if Rebuke's popular, if like any yellow deck is popular, where again like Imperial Decree is a card that you can't really like play around with this deck. Just yellow having so much removal, I think is like an inherent counter. So I get where you're coming from. If this deck ends up topping, it wouldn't surprise me, but like I don't think it's consistently going to perform well. Next up, we have Jax. This is green orange. It is another equipment deck. It just has 2 effects that both move equipment. One for mana and then one for free if it's already equipped. It has I think okay units. One with deflects, and then that one gives equipment quick draw. And the other one is a weapon master, and then you get to pay 1 to draw whenever it gets equipped. So solid, maintains card economy in an archetype which equipment is just like generally -1. And then a pretty strong signature spell on Counter-Strike. It's a reaction, choose a unit next time it would be dealt damage a turn, prevent it, and you get to draw a card, so it replaces itself. I think overall, solid cards. In general, I just haven't loved the orange typing. I think this is obviously not as bad because you get to have like Defy and like all of like the strong movement spells, like you get Charm. But I'm just in general not a big fan of the equipment decks. Give me some of your thoughts because this is something that I'm not a huge fan of personally.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of the equipment decks, and I think this is the worst equipment deck. So take that as you will, because you don't even get to cheat costs really as much as you do with like Ornn. Like, sure, you get like the Weapon Master and such, but Ornn lets you cheat more cost. You can use stuff like Pearl Snacks to get free draws. You can. It's just very. Ugh, I really dislike this Jax deck, and I have not seen it actually do anything that like Yi or another deck wouldn't do better. So
yeah, I think like obviously Rumble being a red blue deck just makes it better than Jax inherently. So it's probably like I don't know if it's guaranteed, but like it wouldn't surprise me if this deck ends up just like only being a best of champion. I'm very
Sure.
unimpressed by it just
Yeah.
physically and also having played against it a limited amount. Next up is Irelia. This was kind of like the darling child of the early reading of the formats. It has a pretty solid champion effect, or leader effect, sorry. When you choose a friendly unit, you may exhaust me and pay a power to ready it. And then when you conquer, you can pay 1 mana to ready it. I think it has also one of the best chosen champions in the game. It's a 5-drop for 4 that has deflect, and then when you choose a ready me, give me +1 this turn. So that effect can stack as well. It can just gain 3 or 4 might per turn off of its effect. Very strong signature spell and Defiant Dance. It's a reaction. Give a unit +2 and another -2 for 1 and a power. I think it has a lot going for it. I haven't like we'll see if like the tall like protected at the tower type thing is very good. But like you acknowledged earlier, if Rebuke is a very popular card, then that's not something that you can really like, rely upon. This color did get a very strong boost in the green unit. It's a 4 for 3 that says when you move me, draw a card, so you're able to maintain that card economy. Again, as everyone else has said, dies to Falling Star, so not something that you can rely on consistently, but very strong tools in it. We'll just see if there are lists that can take advantage of it. Let me see, or what have you seen this deck perform early? Like, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it is a deck that reads a little bit better than it actually is. Kind of what you said, where you do have the issue of you're very reliant on a few units. You don't want to spread yourself thin with a lot of units, so then it ends up being that removal on that one unit is a lot more brutal, right? And sure, you can play Hourglass and sure, you can play Zonias to try and protect it, but those are only going to go so far. And you do find yourself without units. Like people I've seen in China lists playing like 3 Aurelias just because you need high quality units for the play style. And that's like what you have Treasure Hunter, maybe you have the the draw card Stellacorn, I think it is.
Yeah, sounds right.
And then you have like the Irelia unit, and those are like the main ones that you want to play. And anything other than that is going to be like a fairly significant drop off.
Mm-hmm.
I I still do think she's like a bottom of A tier deck. It's a competent deck. The signature is broken, like you said. It executes its game plan very well. It just has issues of being a little bit one note in that you are a like protect the towers, and if your towers gets outed, well, that can just be the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
do you
I
have any
think
thoughts?
the only other additional thing is it's a very power hungry deck, like both with leader ability and with a lot of the effects. And this deck doesn't have the best coin generation, like you said. There's Treasure Hunter, I think, right of it. The 2-drop. I'm so sorry, the name of it.
Yeah, Treasure Hunter.
Yeah. So that unit is very good. But that's not a card that as a 1 might unit you really want to like invest a lot into defending. Like I don't think this deck's gonna play Reaver's Row because like you really want to be like actually initiating combat and winning and gaining your value that way. So you get probably 1 or 2 power a game off of that, but that's still going to keep you in like the 5 to 9 power range. You're never going to get to that top end to be able to do multiple things a turn. So we'll see if people are able to cook up lists with this that perform well. Between this and Yasuo, I think the green-purple color combination is strong. I think Irelia has a generally stronger chosen champion, but Yasuo may just end up being a little bit better because of the leader ability being a little more versatile. We'll end up seeing, I think there is potential in the color combination. I haven't seen it kind of full force its way into the meta, but like I think there's a lot of potential between these 2 decks. Next up, we have Azir. This is another gear deck. It's green yellow in color. It says your sand tokens have Weapon Master, and then tap the leader for and a mana. Play a 2 might sand soldier unit to your base, and then play only if you use an equipment this turn. So very conditional effect, unfortunately. But the units are strong. It's like a better victor, quote unquote. Obviously under some condition. There are 2 chosen champions, which I think both have some viability. Yellow 4 for 4 with accelerate for 1 and a power, and then when I attack, you may move any number of your token units to this battlefield. And then the green one is for 6 and a power for 6 might. It has the first action that I think we've seen on units. It's for a green power. Choose a unit control, move me to its location, and it to my original location. If it's equipped, you may attach one of its equipment to me. Use it only once per turn. So a bit of a battle trick inherently within the color, and this is obviously able to be accessed through chosen champion. And then the signature spell I think is above average. It's a 6 for 1 neutral power. Play a 2 might sand soldier for every equipment you control, and then ready 2 of them. So access to instantly attack both battlefields. And again, all these units have Weapon Master, so able to put a lot of pressure on board very quickly with this effect. But again, like if we look at the S tier of the meta and there's a lot of thermal beam and a lot of gear removal, this deck is going to struggle a little bit. I think inherently there's some potential here. I in general just like the yellow color. I think it just has a lot of utility into it. Just like hard removal or like guaranteed removal is I think above average in this game. So I think this deck has potential. I think it's probably somewhere in the B tier right now with potential to go up. Of the gear decks, I think it has probably one of the mechanics that I like the most. But I wouldn't surprise me if this deck ends up like not doing anything special over the course of time. Where are you at with it?
I think it's a mid upper B deck, and the reason being is that while Azir's leader ability is conditional, which is very unfortunate, it does make your gear into less of a neg to play, like considerably less of a neg, as you do get a guaranteed unit every time you play a gear, right? So your gear are your units, and it lets you deck build in some very interesting ways that other decks don't have access to. And I've seen some very cool lists that remind me of the very spell heavy Victor lists, where you just get to play like 15 gear, 15, 18 gear, and then just spells to protect your stuff, right? Because you don't actually have to play units if you don't want to. Admittedly, I think I still would, but
Yeah.
every one of your gear is a unit, right? So you can go do the thing like where you go second with Victor and you play a 2-drop plus a token. Well, with Azir, it's hey, I can play a gear plus a token, or even if I go first, if I draw one of the 1-cost gear, it's like a gear plus a token, and I have a 3 might unit that has some sort of bonus effect like creating tokens on turn 1. So I think it has some pretty high highs. I will say the thing that scares me about this deck is, and it feels a bit weird to say this because every deck has this issue to an extent where if you don't see units, you don't play, but this one feels even a little bit worse because your chosen champions somewhat interact with gear as well and your tokens. So if you miss your gear, like your signature doesn't do anything, your leader doesn't do anything, so you're playing a vanilla leader, and you like your chosen champions don't do a lot either. So specifically because you have to draw a gear to really do anything makes me a little bit less happy about it as a deck. So I guess maybe more like mid B than upper B thinking
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, I think again, I think there's some high highs. Like this deck can also just be like a grand strat deck. Like you can also just like get a lot of tokens that way. I think once it starts rolling, it's probably pretty hard to break through. Even if you thermal beam it, like once you get like the bodies on board, like they're not just like gonna get removed, right? Like you can just like play more gear eventually. We'll see what the card economy looks like. There's actually a yellow gear shears that says when this unit dies, like you get to draw a card, so it can maintain card economy in that way. I think there's legs behind it. I don't think it's a deck that will be like overpowering in the meta. I think it's like just probably a solid gear deck with some good tools, and that leader ends up being strong and wouldn't surprise me. Like the chosen champion, the green one, I think it's above average, and we'll see how it ends up affecting the games that Azir is in. Next up, we have Ezreal. This is blue purple. The only color combination we have of this set right now is Teemo, so it's definitely going to be a different approach to the color. It is a reaction ability on the leader to tap it, draw 1, use only if you've chosen enemy units and or gear twice this turn with spells or unit abilities. To go along with that, we have 2 units, blue one for 4 and a power for 3. When I attack or defend, deal damage equal to my might equal to unit here. I don't deal combat damage, and then it has a power action, move me to your base, so it's just a move in, deal damage, move out to avoid destruction. And then the purple, which is 3 for a power for 3. And then when you play me, discard 1, draw 2. And then adopt an additional effect, optional cost you pay cost 1 power or 1 energy less. And then the signature spell is 3 and a power, arcane shift, action, play on, and then banish a friendly unit. Then its owner plays it, ignoring its cost, deal 3 damage to unit at a battlefield, and then banish this card. So a lot of tools. I think this purple Ezreal reads is one of the better cards in the set. I think the difficulty that we found in building this, and ironically, one of our friends was building this deck right before we hopped on the call, was we couldn't really find an identity for this deck. You can obviously play like a Turbo Mundo deck, right, where you just like put 30 cards in your grave between Stack Deck and Cult Shot and whatever other like stupefies. Like it's very easy to load your grave up, but let's say your Mundo gets rebuked or vengeanced or like Imperial Decree, like if something happens to your like towers unit right now, I think that's obviously a big detriment. So like where does this deck function in like the early and mid game? Assuming that Mundo is even a viable win con, which I'm not sure it is. That's kind of the issue that we're having in building this. I like the blue Ezreal. I think it has potential. I don't think it's a fantastic unit right now. But right now, I think like I build around the purple Ezreal, and then from there, I'm kind of trying to figure out what exactly is good. Like obviously, you have like the Fizz unit where you can either replay cards like Called Shot or stack deck, and like again, you can see your entire deck. But what does your deck have in it that actually provides value that like wins you combats that gets you points? Like where does that come from? And I'm struggling to find it. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit frankly insulting that Riot printed a leader that is a conditional draw one that likely requires you to pay a power because it's pretty difficult to target multiple things without paying a single power to draw one. And you can only do that every once per your turn. So,
Yeah.
and then we have Draven in the same set that can draw 3+ cards across his and his opponent's turn for the cost of just playing the game, right?
Yeah.
Like it's possible you can never draw off of Ezreal effect. But if you are playing the game as Draven, you are drawing. So it's just kind of ridiculous that it was printed this way. And maybe Riot sees things that we don't. But as it is right now, I just think this Ezreal deck doesn't do anything. It's kind of what you said is it draws a lot of cards. It sees the entire deck. And then you're just playing triple Rasa and maybe some Nocturnes and what else? Um, I do think there is potential there in the future with the signature spell. Replaying units and getting on plays can potentially be really broken. But I don't think there's anything out there right now that really makes that good enough.
Yeah, I think
So
between like Mind Splitter is a very good card. Obviously, like I think Arcane Shift as a card can have a lot of potential. Right when there are a lot of very good on play effects. I think right now we don't have that yet. This deck I think probably scales with time just because of the color combination and Arcane Shift being a good card. But as of right now, like you said, like if we are just like let's look at set two in a vacuum, like why would I ever play Ezreal when Draven has half of access to the cards that it does and is a noticeably better leader ability? Like not
yeah,
even comparable in terms of how much more efficient Draven is than Israel. And the color combination again, like it doesn't have like a big payoff. Like obviously there's Mundo. I don't think that's enough right now. Like again, like if Draven has half of the access to you, that deck also has Rebuke. Like that deck is just going to have like a very strong matchup in Ezreal if like just looking at that as like your game plan alone. So over the course of time, I could see this being a solid leader. Right now, I think it's probably in like a chosen champion or sorry, not chosen, like a metal card hunting tier. Maybe Arcane Shift and on play stuff becomes better over time. Right now, I don't see it. So I would be
yep,
surprised if this deck ends up top whatever 64ing in a major event.
yep.
Next up we have Renata Glass, a blue yellow. This I think everything playing this color just is a token deck it seems. So this one is a little bit more gold focused though. It says when you are an ally hold, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token exhausted. And then when your score is within 3 points of the victory score, which is a good specification when you play with cards like Aspirin's Climb, so it's 6 versus 9 compared to like 5. You get your gold add an additional 1, so it'll be 2 effectively power per gold. It has solid chosen champions, blue and a yellow. The blue one can be cheated out with cards like Heimerdinger. It says for 1 and a power, draw a card. For 4 and 4 power, you either tap it to score a point, and then its units can only be used, or its abilities can only be used at a battlefield. The yellow one is a 4 and a power. Your tokens enter ready, so maybe some potential in that. And then the signature spell is very interesting. It's called Hostile Takeover, 5 for 2 and a power, which can be hidden. And then it says take control of an enemy unit at a battlefield, ready it. Start a combat if other enemy units are there, otherwise conquer. And then the ending text is lose control of that unit and recall it at the end of the turn. So if you're playing it on your turn, you can take a unit, enter combat with it on a different battlefield, whatever. Or as a hidden, it can just like effectively stifle a combat in its tracks. Just like take the unit, and now your battlefield is even stronger by taking the control of theirs. I think there's some neat tools in this. But when I've looked at like some of like the cards that are designed to be supportive of this, it just like cards that feel like they're better in other decks. I'm not super impressed by what Renata Glass offers compared to a deck like Victor. Even to compare to something like Lux, like I don't think I would ever play. Like Renata probably has some more potential than Lux. I'm slightly biased. I think the champion has like some legs under it. But I just am not currently impressed by Renata inherently. I'm open to this being better over time. If I had to put a color, I think color combination is just solid. And it's probably somewhere like the low B tier. But I don't see this deck as of right now being something super impressive. Where are you at?
Yeah, am also a little biased because one of our mutual friends spent some time with this deck, and I honestly think it sucks. That being said, he could have just been building the deck entirely wrong. Very possible, knowing who it is. But I think the biggest issue I saw with the builds of the deck that I have seen recently is that it lacks a mid game. It's pretty easy for pretty much every deck to get points early game, right? Because if I'm playing a 2-drop, you're playing a 2-drop, it's pretty likely that we're both going to be scoring and maybe holding once. But I think the difficulty comes from going to like 2 to 3 points all the way up to that threshold where you start getting the bonuses.
Mhm.
And I don't really see a lot in this color combination that helps with that. So I think the leader ability just doesn't work.
Mhm.
Um, and maybe the signature spell will help with that, but it's a very expensive signature spell that essentially says get 1 point.
Yeah.
Because you'll take their guy, and if that's even if they leave anything, says because you have to remember that a lot of leaders are pretty good at keeping stuff off of the battlefields. Like you can, like let's say we're playing Lucian, which is just another set 2 leader. It's pretty realistic with Lucian to take a point with the Lucian champion and then pull back every turn, and you're just never letting the signature spell do anything. So I don't know. I'm a big hater. I think she's like somewhere in C, maybe low C even. But I am open to just not having seen the light. Maybe there's a really cool build
Yeah.
out there, but she's pretty
I mean,
unpopular. So
yeah, there may be something with time warp at some point in the future that ends up being cool, but like you said, like
mhm.
getting to that 5 point or 6 point threshold is, I think, pretty difficult. As someone who plays a lot of Victor, like I think that is in general the hardest part of the deck is getting to that like 6 point threshold as you're trying to end the game. So opening the light. I think the gold mechanic is good. There's actually a lot of gold in the two colors. Like when I looked at you have I think 15 like 3 or 5 different 3-ofs that you can play of that are all relatively accessible between the Poros. There's Card Sharp, there's Wages of Pain, and then there's one more removal spell I believe that has it on there. So a lot of gold generation. So you have access to it. It just does that actually uh transition into points? And I think as of right now the
Yep.
answer is no with this deck. We'll see if that changes in the future, but as of right now I'm pretty low on it as a leader.
Yep.
Next up, we have Sivir, orange purple. This is a deck that I think we've seen a lot of hype on online. I'll just briefly kind of go over it. When you recycle a rune, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token exhausted. When one or more of your units die, ready me. The signature spell is on the hunt for 1 for 2. It says ready all your units, and then there's two chosen champions. A 6 for 3 for orange. That's as 7 power or 7 might. Sorry. Deflect 2, and then when I conquer after an attack, if you assign 5 or more excess damage, you may deal that much to an enemy unit. And then a 4 for 1 for 4, accelerate for 1 and a power. If you spend at least 2 power this turn, I have +2 in ganking. This is a leader that I am impressed with. I think the lowest on everything we've read. I don't know why this deck is hyped as much as it is. I think orange purple is a solid color combination. I don't understand why Sivir is the chosen champ for this. This just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand. Like you have bad chosen champions, you have a bad signature spell. Like they obviously there is utility in all these cards. But if I was gonna play a tempo orange purple deck, Misfortune just feels like a better version of this. Like I don't really understand what the selling point is of Sivir specifically compared to a deck like Misfortune. If you want to play a tempo mid range, even equipment deck, like you can just do all those things in Misfortune, which I think has a better leader. Like, do you have any selling points for this?
Not really. I don't like the deck. I think that the performance it did have, it did win the last night's Runes and Rift. I think it really shouldn't have. The player played well, sure. I I think that they drew very well as well. I mean, this is something I discussed internally, but with some friends, but they drew just insanely well. They saw the probably the best card in their deck punch out 3 times in multiple games, which is just crazy. Because there are times you won't see a 3 of going 20 cards deep in your deck, but they saw 3 in the first 15 cards, and it's just the best potentially the best combat trick in the game
Yeah.
for its cost. And it was carried pretty hard by that. And honestly, the orange cards in general just don't what the deck looked like it just played purple with like punch out, like which sure I guess if
Yeah.
that's what you want, but then is it really better than MF? And I guess you could make an argument that she does get gold generation, so you do get to cheat your power costs a little bit but you actually do have to spend the power to do that. So you can't just say, okay, I'm going to ramp up with the gold, because you're never ramping. You are losing every turn because you do have to recycle every turn to get value out of it. So
Mhm.
I'm not a huge fan. I'm kind of with you. It did see a little bit of success though, so I'm open to being wrong, but
Yeah.
I am not impressed. So
I will put it in C tier out of respect for the color combination. If I had to pick, I think it's like a guarantee in terms of just overall champion, signature spell, leader ability. Like, I am so unimpressed by what, like, how these cards all interact together and how strong they are, that I think this is truly a guarantee in terms of it's like just like why would I play these cards for their
mhm,
use? But I think the color combination is obviously solid. The
sure.
leader ability is like fine, but like there's so many other things bringing it back right now that I just like can't place it any higher personally. If this deck ends up topping, like I'm not gonna be the most surprised because like I said, the color combination I think is above average. Purple right now I think is just probably the best color in the game just based off of all the tools it has access to. So it wouldn't surprise me this deck does well. I just think that there's just so much more potential in other colors, like other purple decks, other orange purple decks, even to justify this being substantially higher. My personal take, I'm open to being wrong, but that's just where I'm at with it.
Sure.
And then last but not least, we have Fiora. This is orange yellow. The leader ability says when one of your units becomes mighty, you may exhaust me to channel one rune exhausted. I think this color is very much carried by, or this leader is carried by its signature spell Riposte. It is 2 for 2 power. Reaction speed, choose a friendly unit and a spell, counter that spell, and give that unit might equal to the spell's energy cost this turn. There's a few different Fiora chosen champions. One that says when a unit control becomes mighty, you may pay a yellow power to ready it. And then the one that I think got the most hype initially online was a 3-for-1 that says when I attack or defend 1-on-1, double my might this combat. So inherently, that's reads really strong. But like you're paying a power early. If your opponent sends in 2 units, obviously you don't get to do it. So it's a very conditional, easy to play around leader. Um, where are you at with this before I give my thoughts?
I think it's okay. I mean, she's pretty vanilla. Not really a ton going on here. It's like, okay, do you want to play a buff deck, which is just set but ramp for some reason?
Yeah.
Same colors, and you do the same things where you're just buffing your 4 might units, so you give them mighty and then you get a ramp. Or you are playing an equipment deck that says I'm going to equip stuff to my guys, make them mighty, and then ramp. Honestly, it's pretty similar to what you said. She's insanely carried by her signature spell. I'm not super impressed by really anything the deck does. I think it's fine, and I think it has some interactions that do make it a little bit annoying for decks. Where, for instance, if you play the Hex Drinker equipment, and then you equip it to like a Kiana or the yellow Fiora, I forget which one it is, but the 4 cost Fiora, yellow
Yeah.
Fiora,
Double
they
deflect.
both
Yeah.
end up being 5 might deflect too, which could be pretty annoying for stuff like Kaisa, right?
Yeah.
But like you said, like it's a very vanilla deck that just kind of puts out one big body a turn, and they're not even that big. It's like between the 4 to 7 range. Um, I think it's fine. It reminds me of Lucian. Like it does what it does. Um,
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Again, like if this deck becomes a gear deck, I'm unimpressed by the gear. Oh, I'm so sorry. By the gear, like whatever equipment. Like I think they're all like fine, but like it's not a mechanic that I have read. So like I've read all of them. There's nothing in there that stands out that like yes, this is like so strong, or there aren't enough of these cards for me to like yes, I want to build my deck around it. Like I think putting a card like Triforce in a E deck that wants to hold has some utility to it, but like I don't want to build my entire deck around Triforce E or like whatever combination of gears. I put this in probably like high C, maybe low B. If you think like the signature spell carries it that hard, I'm overall just like I said, pretty vanilla. Color combinations like okay, but like set just seems like a better champion. That is like just provides units that are so sticky.
sure.
And the deck is very good. All right, we won't
Yep.
go all the way through set one because we have gone pretty far already. So give me like
Yep.
2 or 3 champions from set one that you think are going to be either taking a big jump from set two cards or are just like going to maintain their presence where they are like towards the top of the meta.
Sure. So as you are well aware, I love Yasuo. I think Yasuo is a pretty good choice for set 2. He went from like bottom of B to somewhere in C in set 1, but I think he is now somewhere in the top of B or even bottom of A. I mean, it's literally just Irelia. Their leader abilities are very similar, except his is not conditional. You can use it whenever, and it doesn't cost a power. So the main difference I would see between the two decks is Yasuo doesn't have to really be a protect the towers style deck. You can play stuff like Mind Splitter and such because you actually can ramp yourself up as you're not paying multiple power every turn. I think the Yasuo champion unit could be pretty decent too. It is effectively a removal, whereas the Irelia unit does need to actually battle. So I like Yasuo a lot. I guess we'll see, but sharing the same colors, having a very similar leader ability, just a slightly different flavor. It seems good to me. I think the other. Actually, do you have any thoughts on Yasuo before we?
I think that's solid. Like I'm not. I think like the signature spell of Irelia is just far and away one of the best combat tricks in the game. Like between that and Punch for a second, it's one of the two. Obviously, this is limited because of only one deck, but very strong ability that works well with it. Yasuo's signature spell is okay, but like probably like like an average like 5 out of 10. Like for it, that's a card that I haven't even seen played in a lot of Yasuo decks. So like you're not playing the Yasuo deck for a signature spell, so automatically there's like a little bit of a downgrade. But like you said, the deck is able to ramp. The biggest issue I think is like the leader ability costing 2. I think that's pretty expensive. Like at your best case scenario, we're at 12. That's still 1/6 of your turn, which doesn't sound like a lot. But once you get to like the 12, like you want to be playing like whatever 6 to 8 to 10. Like that's a lot of mana that you're spending. And then in the early game, that's a pretty expensive move. Um, I do think that like you've kind of alluded to throughout the conversation, uh, protect the tower type decks are going to be a little bit worse just because of cards like Rebuke being very accessible. So I think maybe this may be like the approach to the deck that or to the color that it needs. We're able to go a little bit wider, be a little bit more versatile in the way that the deck plays. I think there's potential behind it. Like you can just play like the Irelia unit in the also deck and it still just be like really annoying. So I think there's definitely potential in it. I think I'd probably still put it in like the top of B tier, but like I think it's the color combination has a lot of legs on it. I wouldn't be surprised if this deck ends up performing even better in set 2 than it did in set 1.
Yep. Any? Obviously, I think we both are somewhat on Victor for set 2 and think that it is pretty decent. What are your thoughts on Victor?
So I played it yesterday in Runes of Rifts. I was 3-1 before I had to leave. I did not play the control blue Victor deck. Ironically, I played against that. I think any Victor deck that is not blue Victor, playing into blue Victor has a very good matchup, obviously, because you get to maintain enough cards or units that they can't remove. So I think I like the Victor deck. I think the mid game is still a bit of a struggle, like you kind of mentioned with Renata. Like this deck doesn't really have a lot of great answers to that problem. But you do have a lot of interesting interactions now with cards like Imperial Decree plus Bellows, where you can just like effectively board wipe everything. There's a lot of neat utility. What's annoying is a card like Piercing Light coming out. Like if a deck like Draven or Kaisa is in the meta and plays that, like you don't have to Cathian Rain. You can just like pay 4 mana and just like wipe your entire board. So I think that's a pretty big detriment to the deck being, I think, at the top of the meta. But I think the deck's still very solid, has a lot of utility to it. You can play cards like Premonition or just like there's like a lot of different ways to maintain card economy in this deck. And with gold, like you're not going to get stuck on like the 6 to 8 mana range that you are before. Like you can comfortably get to 10 and even 12 depending on how you curve out. So I think there's a fair amount of potential with the deck. I don't think it's ever going to be like the best deck. Just because of how strong red is, at least right now, maybe in the future, but like there's so many good tools in red to check Victor that I think it's really difficult for it to ever be the best deck. But I think it has a lot of strong utility in the color and it's just a very strong leader ability.
Yep. I guess we could touch on the very quickly on the current meta, set 1 meta leaders. So Kaisa, I think Kaisa is still very strong. I would still probably put her in S personally. S or top of A. She has a couple builds going around. There's the mech build. There's the more traditional build. I mean, Kaisa still does what she does, and when you are playing against these Protect the Towers decks, she likes that because she just removes the towers. So I think Kaisa is still a very good pick.
Yeah, I think Kaisa's solid. I think like a deck like Set probably still not bad. I don't want to go through all of them. I think Teemo is probably surprisingly still the better blue purple deck. Like if you want to compare the two, I think Annie's still very solid between like S and A. Just like this color combination again, just very above average. And then when we get to like the other decks, like we've kind of alluded to like Yi and Misfortune. I think one of these two, if not both of them, are going to end up in the A tier still. I don't know if Aurora is going to like be as strong as it was in set one. If I had to guess, the answer is no. But I think this deck has a lot of tools into it. And now we get to see, now that there's more options in the game, like what does like a tempo Misfortune deck look like with more utility to it. I think Yi, the leader ability is still very strong again. My early claim on the deck was like, oh, eventually it'll get phased out. We're still only in set two. There aren't that many colors to it. I think as long as red is still comfortably in the meta, you're still gonna struggle because like they can just remove all of your stuff before you enter combat. But some of these other decks, like let's say like Irelia, like it's gonna be hard for them to actually like force their way through a Yi unit, especially in the early game. So there's a deck that can get a bit of a lead early, and then especially if you're playing cards like Triforce and whatever, like you still have Defies and Charms to interact with the backline. Like this is just a color combination I think has a lot of potential to it. Yeah, any additional thoughts before we kind of wrap up here?
Okay, one last leader. You have mentioned Lux a few times. Where do you think Lux is?
I'm pretty sure she's ass. Unfortunately,
Okay.
I played mid in League. I think being able to maintain your card economy in a control deck is solid. But the same issue with Renata that Lux also has, like, so her middle game is a little bit better because it has so much removal, but you can't guarantee units the same way you can with Victor. So, like, if they have removal in return for you, like, what does, like, your, we'll say 10 to 15 units look like in your deck that are going to, like, either A, be sticky, or be, like, legitimately, like, win combats? And I think this deck doesn't really have an answer to that, unfortunately. Like, even if you have 10, like, you're at 10 runes, and you have, whatever, 7 cards in hand, like, you're only really playing one card a turn if you're playing like a removal spell. Okay, what am I doing with that other mana? Like I'm playing a Poro, whatever, like Hard Shark. Like you can play those units, but like, are they actually consistently like providing or like winning combats and applying pressure? And the answer is I don't think you know. So probably not a great deck, unfortunately. I think Victor's ability to just like go wide consistently, resolve cards like Grand Stratagem, is just like so much stronger than anything that Lux could ever be.
All right, sounds good.
Alrighty, my friend. Thank you for doing this with me. I will have this on YouTube again. If there's any more of these styles of videos, any leaders you want us to go over in depth in the future, let us know. But yeah, thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you in the next one.